Hi, I'm Solène Tircuir, sociologist, global health expert, and immigrant storyteller.
And I'm Sacha Ledon, entrepreneur, startup advisor, and lifelong connector of founders from every corner of the globe.
Welcome to Beyond Borders, a podcast about what it really means to build a life, a career, or a dream far from home.
Each week, we speak with people who've crossed countries and cultures, sharing the challenges, the breakthroughs, and the unexpected moments in between. That's where the real story begins. Welcome to Beyond Borders.
Hi, welcome to Beyond Borders. We're joined today by Omri, partner at NFX, and very excited to have this discussion. Omri originally from Israel, but I'll let you make a more detailed intro, Omri.
Sure, so Omri, nice to meet everyone on the podcast. About me, so I'm one of the 5 general partners at NFX. NFX is a venture fund. We manage 1.4 billion, sweet spot $2 to $5 million lead check at seed, with one partner in Israel and the rest in Silicon Valley. Every partner is doing their own thing. My focus is the intersection of tech and bio and longevity. That's my goal in life is to end in voluntary death. That's my plan. And a little bit about me. I'm born and raised in Israel. After the army service, started studying biology. Did my PhD in biochemistry. Got the Fulbright fellowship. Went to Stanford back in 2007 to do my postdoc. That's the first time I've been to the US for a long time. So I was there for 4 years. Went back to Israel to start a company, a software company for bioengineers called Tech Bio. But used to come every summer with my family to the US, between 1 month to 4 months every summer. And then back in 2016, my company got acquired by a US company called Twist Biosciences, a company that prints DNA. So I was back in the US for another 2.5 years. And then came back to Israel, started my own fund called Tech Bio, a pre-seed fund, and then back and forth to the US every year, minus one of the COVID years. And then in July 2023, I decided enough is enough and moved to the US for good is a long time, but for now, for good. So got my green card and and I'm here.
Great. Well, first of all, congratulations on getting a green card. I know that can be a complicated and long process. So I kind of want to go back maybe to the beginning and why in the first time when you went to Stanford, you decided to come to the US, and what was your kind of motivation to eventually full move here or maybe permanently move here?
Yeah, good question. Look, when you're in science, especially Israel, which is a small country, and you want to stay in science, expectation is for you to get your postdoc training in one of the best universities in the world, and many of them are in the US, not all of them. My wife got her postdoc in Berkeley, so I had to find something in the Bay Area. So I came here, did some interviews in Berkeley, UCSF, and Stanford, and fell in love in both the lab that I worked in and also at Stanford, which is a beautiful, beautiful, amazing place. And had a great 4 years there. It was so good that I never left. Every time I came back, we came back to a small town called Menlo Park, which is just the other side of the world from Stanford. And I still have my Stanford card and go to the gym and love it there. I think it's the best weather in the world and smart people. And for tech, for sure, it's the number one place in the world. But never easy. Never easy to immigrate. So my 3 kids were born in the US. My young son, my oldest son was born the last year of my postdoc. My second son was born in a business trip. We flew in like every summer we fly in. So he was born in July. So we flew in at 9 months, had him with no health insurance, which was an interesting story. And
Not
then my
planned,
daughter
or
was,
was that a
what?
plan? Was it a plan to have him
That
born
was a
here?
plan, yeah, to have him here. Why not? And then my daughter was born when I sold my company and I was kind of vesting in peace in Menlo Park. So they're all Americans. And they used to laugh at me and my wife that we need to have visa and they don't. And I told them I gave them the gift of needing to talk to the IRS every year for the rest of their life. But
No matter where they live. Yeah.
No matter where they live, exactly. Yeah, so they've been back and forth. They are bilingual kids with double cultures, but I think they like it here more. So again, why we moved here? Again, it's not the US even, it's the Bay Area, right? You know, the US is a big country and Alabama is very different than Colorado. They're very different than the Bay Area. And even in California, you know, there are very different places if you just drive an hour away. But in the Bay, there's a large community of ex-Israelis or Israelis. Actually, my older brother and younger brother lives here. And for science is, you know, one of the meccas for science, definitely the mecca for tech, and that's my job right now. Investing in seed companies in tech, like nothing better than the Bay Area. Beautiful weather, smart people, like, you know, other than the taxes, you know, everything is great.
Everything's great, right? I mean, you mentioned tech, and I know that the Bay Area is still obviously the kind of first when it comes to tech, but Israel has actually done an amazing job at developing its tech ecosystem very rapidly. So, you know, you still felt the U.S. was a better place for you as opposed to developing with the Israel, especially since you had a company there?
Yeah, it's a good question. So, like everything, you need to build an ecosystem. Like mighty oaks only grow if the land is rich and deep enough, right? So, and it's hard to build this ecosystem. I think the Israeli built that for tech. It took a long time. They used to call it Startup Nation. Now they call it Scale Up Nation because a company like Wiz can grow to $34 billion, and that's what required for from venture scale. But it takes years and years of companies starting and dying and getting acquired for small amount and multinational coming along and training and management and people, whatever, right? It remind me, I tell a lot of people they should move. When they ask me, so I just talked to Italian delegation that came to Stanford. I talked to a lot of people, and when they ask me what my main advice is, move. And when they ask me why, um, I tell them about a meeting I had with Eric Schmidt in a camp called Curiosity Camp that a fund called Innovation Endeavors is organizing once a year. And he talked about a lot of things. And then at the end of the talk, somebody asked him, okay, what would be your advice for young people? So he thought about it. And then he said, oh, I have an advice. Be lucky. And then everybody laughed and like, oh, that's a stupid advice. You know, be lucky. Great. You've been lucky, but like, that's not very actionable. And then he said, no, 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 no. You can live where lucky people live, right?
Yeah.
And when you look about the real estate cost at the Bay Area, which is very high, the only reason, you know, a house that everywhere else costs $100,000 here cost like $6, $7 million because, you know, I have a lot of lucky rich people. And why is that? You know, you have NVIDIA here, and two-thirds of NVIDIA employees have more than $25 million because it's a multi-trillion-dollar company, right? And you have Apple here and Google here and startup here. And why is that? Because of the network effects. So NFX, the name of the fund, stands for network effects. And places have network effects. And the Bay Area has the network effects for startup. You have the investors, you have the companies, you have the entrepreneurs, you have the big companies, small companies, you have the ecosystem to build, to grow fast and to build mighty trees. And so, you know, the ecosystem to making video movies are maybe LA, and the ecosystem for starting a hedge fund is maybe New York, but the ecosystem for startup is definitely number one here, also in Israel, also for bios, sometimes in Boston and other places, but definitely that's a core. So it's a place to be. It's the NFL.
Yeah, so I love that. Like, create your luck by being in the context where lucky people are, or
Yeah,
increase your luck. Yeah,
yeah.
that's
There's a reason. If you're part of a place where there has a network effect, then it's easier to be lucky.
so I'm kind of curious how your immigrant journey shaped your professional journey and how you felt that it may have helped you or hindered you as you came here as an outsider, and from a different
Very
world.
good question. I think depending where you come from, it changes a lot. Israel, the American culture is very strong in Israel. You know, we see the American TV shows and the movies, and kind of very close also, you know, geopolitically to the US. And Israel also is so small that nobody is thinking about building a company just for Israel. You build a company, you know that you're going to sell outside of Israel, and the US has been kind of the major market for Israelis. And I think there's almost 700,000 American living in Israel. So I think there are more American in Israel than some states in the
Right.
US. So culturally, and everybody in Israel have to learn English. So you learn English, you learn Hebrew. So the language barrier is not as high, though I have to say, even though I know English, it took me like a year of actually living here full time to feel super comfortable just speaking it as a first, almost as the first language. I think that's part of the barrier people have. They learn in school, but until you are immersed
Is it the
in the language, you might, in your brain, you're always gonna think with your mother tongue, and you have
yeah,
to kind of
you're translating in your brain?
translate in your brain. But
Yeah.
once you've been here for enough time, like now my default is to speak English, and it's just become so easy. Also, it helps me that something that really helps me, and I recommend to a lot of people come to the US, is when I was at Stanford, I really got into college football, and through that to just football
Yeah.
and sports.
Hmm.
So, if you're into sport, you can definitely strike a conversation with any American.
Hmm.
So
Yeah,
that
that's the common language.
and you feel the culture, and I think to a point, I see it with my son. Some immigrants or first generation immigrants get more immersed into the culture than people living here for all their life. I think my son knows more about US politics than most Americans because he cares so much and he reads and learns and kind of very much immersed in that. And I think I know about college football most than some Americans, again, because it's kind of your new favorite thing, while some people just live here. And I'm not sure, I think I went to more national park in the US than most Americans just because when you live in a place,
Yeah.
you say, I'll go next year, whatever, whatever. When you come to, and we came to visit for so many times, it's like, let's go here, let's go there. So we went,
Yeah.
visited a lot of places that I don't think America did. So yeah.
Yeah, I guess you have a lot more appreciation for these things when you're coming from the outside as opposed to growing up and being immersed in them. You kind of take it for granted sometimes.
I guess for me, very luckily, it's been very easy transition. But even for us, it wasn't easy. Even though, like, I have an amazing job here. I know people for since 2007. So some people I know for like almost
Right.
20 plus years. I know the culture. I get used to living here. Like it feels like home. So, but even for us, it was hard to leave home. And I think you can only leave home once. Like it's one
Mm.
thing to do a relocation, it's one thing to really immigrate. It's a different mindset. Um, yeah.
So that's always hard to change, of course, and especially even if the cultures are close, I think there's still a lot of differences.
Oh
So
yeah.
I'm kind of curious what if you have an example of the kind of biggest culture shock you had fully moving to the U.S. compared to your expectation or your background.
Yeah, it's a good question. There are a few. Obviously, the systems are very different. Where you're coming from a place with social medicine to the US, you're kind of shocked about how things work here. Where in
Yeah.
Israel, when you come to the hospital, the first thing they ask you is, "What's wrong with you?" Here, the first thing they ask you is like, "What insurance you have?"
Hmm.
That was kind of a shock. I think for a lot of Israelis, the main shock is how hard it is to really get close to Americans.
Mm.
Still, a lot of our friends are Israeli. Just culturally, it's you feel like you're the same family, and very easy to talk about stuff. And for example, play date. Like in Israel, you don't have play dates. It's a weird notion. Like your kids decide the school where they want to go, and the parents just come and just take them to whatever. And like, every house is everybody's house. Like, sometimes I used to take my daughter from kindergarten, and I came with 5 kids, and sometimes I said, "Oh, see, some other parents took her." It's like
Hmm.
it was never a big deal. And here it was a big shock for us where
Mm.
a daughter wants to meet somebody and the parents put up their calendar and tell us, oh, in 2 months on this and that hours. That was very weird. Took us some time to understand. Actually, it's funny, like one of the VCs in Israel actually created a document trying to translate, especially California. So
Mm.
Israeli to California translation. For example, like, let's have coffee. Israel translation, what Israel think, let's have coffee. What Americans think, we'll never meet each other again. We'll never have coffee, like, whatever. It's like, or like, American tell you, oh, this is great, but you should do this. That what Israeli think, this is great, but we might do this. What American think, they like, this is horrible. Don't do this. Do this, right? So there's like this whole kind of American, Israeli, or at least California. I think New York is slightly different translation table of what people say and what do they really mean.
Yeah. I think and from France and from many countries that are more direct cultures here, they tend to be a bit more maybe avoidant or flowery in the language. So sometimes it's turning around the point and then not as direct what they're trying to say.
But
That's
I actually, it's funny because I think my job as an investor is, sometimes to give feedback and be direct with people. And I think I create a name to myself, maybe as a half autistic person that tells you what he really thinks. But people who work with me know that I'm kind of very direct, and there is no kind of hiding into or meaning or bullshit. And I think they appreciate it. I hope so. Not
I
that I
think there's
care. Like,
there's,
that's,
there's
that's
real
just me. I don't think I will change. But by the way, I learned a lot of things being here that I think improved me. Trying to be more relaxed, be more thoughtful, you know, uh, thank you, open, like a bunch of things that people don't like, have a nice day. Like nobody said that in Israel. People say it here, and some Israeli think it's fake. I think no. I think it's just like, why not? Why not be more cordial? Why not like nice to people? It's not all about, you know. So yeah, some things I learned that made me a more mellow person, I think, living here.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, of course you're gonna change, right, with where you live and the culture that influences you. Is something I've seen as well. So, do you feel now that you're not as Israeli and you're more a blend? Like, if you go back home, do you feel a difference or a shock a bit as well on the culture?
I feel a lot of shock going back home, also because Israel has changed so much. So to the point that I was here for 4 years for postdoc, I felt some shock. And then I was here for 2.5 years for relocation. I felt more shock, even though it was a shorter time. And now, because of the war and everything happened in Israel, I think you feel it even worse. Um, I think there's the difference between when I was just doing my postdoc or relocating, and because then when the default was we're going back to Israel. That's our home. That's where we're going to live. That's where we're going to work. That's where the kids are going to grow. That's where our family is. I think the biggest changes happened since 2023 when we moved. Like we really moved. We sold our house in Israel, and we said like, okay, we're moving. Like we are now living here. Now it's really different. Obviously I still care about Israel with the war that just happened. I was all over the news and watching live, and I have family there, and I care, and I know the story, and I was born through the story and everything. On the other hand, I feel a little bit more detached. Like I used to, when I flew back to Israel, be very mad about the things that I care about, because when you care a lot about something, you're really mad. Oh, like why is it this and can be better? Now when I go back, I think I'm more chilled. Like it's not my problem anymore. I see a lot of things that really annoyed me, and now it's like, oh, interesting. You know, it's like not these people are trying to vote against me and my freedom. It's like, oh, look at those interesting people doing these interesting things. It's like, like being an anthropologist,
Yeah.
going to a tribe in Africa and just observing and not trying to fix everything, just enjoying the good. And I think it's a big difference because, you know, Israel, like life there is very intense. Like you feel alive, like things are happening. They party hard and they work hard, and you have a rockets attack and like whatever. You feel it's a very intense life. Some things are amazing, like because it's such a small country and so family oriented. You have very strong network. Lots of friends, lot of family. So that part is very strong and make people happier. Um, And you miss that. Yeah, you miss some of that energy. Obviously, I think it's way chiller here for good and bad.
Yeah, it's and as you say, like the networks that you spend a lifetime building are so important. So I'd actually always curious how you kind of build a network here and kind of create your community professionally and personally in a new country, in a new culture, in a new job since you've switched as well. Kind of
Yeah, it's a great question. Yeah. Look, initially, especially in the Bay Area, there's a huge amount of Israeli, a few 100,000 Israeli, mainly in tech or academia. There are kind of different kind of Israelis that go to different kind of states. You know, the LA Israelis are different than the Bay Area Israeli that are different than the New York Israeli, whatever. But people who come here are mainly either tech or science. And most people come like for science, like 4 years, relocation, 2, 3 years. So it's almost like people have, and then you have people who just stayed here for the kind of the locals. Um, so when you just come here, usually you very quickly become friends with people who came at the same time frame because everybody has the same kind of needs. Usually people come here with families. Um, in Israel, they would go every weekend to their parents or to meet friends. Here, they have nothing. So they are open for connection. They're open to be friends. You travel together. You have parties together, breakfast. So the initial system that you build, the initial network, is kind of the Israel that came with you, plus minus the same year, because you also potentially would live the same year.
right.
Um, and also, the Israelis been here for a while, and then it depends on what you do. Like I created a network at Stanford with my research people around me, etc. And then when I got into start my company, obviously I would fly here. Like a lot of my business here was so business network grew very rapidly. You talk to investors, you talk to other companies, and I think underrated part of business is just soft skills and like just genuinely be interested in people and do fun things with people and hike and go drinking. And like this is part of business and it's great. Like it create friendship and long-term relationship with people. And people don't like just transactional relationship of you give me, I'll give you whatever. It might start here, but I think the best relationship are where you have no expectation. You just smart people that like each other. So it starts with, again, Israeli network, then kind of science business network. And then look, if you have kids, then like everything, like
Right.
you're the kid's friend, parents, you kind
Yeah,
of
that's your
you get
friend.
to know them, meet them in social occasions, like around school, around other activities. And I've been here again on and off since 2007, so you get to know people for a long time, and you
And
can really build relationships.
do you feel like most of your community here is still Israeli connected or backgrounds, or is it mixed and a lot of US or people from around?
Well, it depends. My job as an investor, early stage investor, I sit on a board of 20 companies. I'm involved in 30 companies. Each company, I'm very close to the founders. I know sometimes the team, you go to team events. So just that is a lot.
Yeah, that's true.
And I don't know if somebody that get totally friends, it's more relationship work, but that's a huge part of the network. Sometimes some of them you really like and becomes your friend. And then my fund, like everybody I work with, my fund, definitely my partners that I know for many years. But yeah, it's funny. Like it's still a big network Israeli. For example, where I live in Menlo Park, we have a WhatsApp group of Israeli in Menlo Park, and it's a very active, and people talk about stuff. And the fact that you share culture really help. And a lot of our close friends are Israeli. We have a few close American friends, but a lot of the close friends are Israeli just because it's so easily, you have so much in common, so just make it way easier.
Yeah, I see it often, with my friends from France or other places. They have a very strong community from their background, their geography, and I think you have a shared language and culture that just facilitates things.
But I
Um,
think like in the Bay, some people go to Burning Man, and then they have that network of the camp and other people who goes, and people I think, especially in digital age, are looking for real meaningful relationships, and it's hard to find. I think I see it also the way school work here. In Israel, you stay in the same class for a long time, so you get to. create like long-term friendship. In the US, they switch classes all the time. Like you have a new class every year. Um, Also because of the US is so big and people go to college and it's people don't expect to know to be friends for like 20, 30 years sometimes, or maybe be friends, but then they leave somewhere, whatever. Like, so it's almost not surprising to me that Facebook was started here because it's kind of a lot of people feel like Facebook friend, where you there's a
Right.
picture you like, you might see them once or twice, even family. Some families, that's something that a lot of Israelis are worried about because in Israel, you used to seeing your kids all the time. You know, you have Shabbat dinner sometimes, like your parents or your parents-in-law, and like yeah, it happens all the time. And here, some American parents see their kids maybe once or twice a year, and that's very much not the
Yeah,
Israeli way.
not the same way.
Yeah.
Um, to switch gears a bit, I want to talk a bit about your career, and maybe first, I was curious why you decided to go from research to entrepreneurship and to VC. So you kind of made a big transformation in your in your sectors. Like, what drew that path for you?
Very interesting question. I think the way life works is very random, and looking back, it's not something I planned from day one to be here. Like it's very surprising to me how I got here. But I think it starts from early age. I was always super curious, reading a lot, science fiction. I think my dream was to be an astronaut. Everything in space sounds better. You have a janitor, and then you have a space janitor. Lawyer, space lawyer, miner, space miner. Everything space sounds better. So, you know, always wanted to go to space. I didn't have good eyesight. I was freaking in Israel, so what chance did I have? So I thought, oh, some scientists go to space, and like science fiction. So, you know, went to biology, pretty randomly, but really fell in love with that. Became really good at that. And then, you do your PhD, you get into research science, and then the next step is to go to do your postdoc. So that's the US, and I was still thinking about staying in science, maybe being a professor. I think, especially in biology, they train you that the successful people become professors, like your
Okay, that's the
teachers,
path. That's the
and the
path.
losers go to industry, whatever that is.
Hmm.
And but luckily I went to Stanford, which is a very entrepreneurial place, and we lived in Berkeley because my wife did a postdoc in Berkeley. So I drove every day like for 2 hours, and I think I learned more listening about for during the drive, listen to podcasts on technology and entrepreneurship than just pipetting in the lab for 4 years. But I think the great thing about Stanford is you're surrounded with smart, accomplished people at the top of the game. So if you don't feel like you're the stupidest person around, you say, "Oh, like, well, maybe I'm one of them." And then
You do
a
it too, right?
postdoc in the lab next to me started a company. I was like, "You could start a company in bio? Is it something I wasn't even aware that it's a possibility, right?" Kind of monkey see, monkey do, right? And a few friends of mine, though, when I came to Israel to visit. I talked to a few friends of mine about things that I like and are passionate about, and a friend told me, "Hey, you should start a company around your idea," and introduced me to a few of his friends from Intel. And then, they came to Stanford to see what I'm doing, and we built a prototype, and then we raised money for that. And I think being in Stanford was very helpful, like the ecosystem, the brand name, etc., to raise initial money for that. And I also learned a lot about entrepreneurship, being in a very entrepreneurial place. So moved back to Israel, start the company. I used to have hair before I was a CEO, like 4 years, 5.5 years of being a CEO in a company where the
The
business
stress.
model wasn't great,
Yeah.
like and the stress and everything, like that took a lot of toll out of me. But I learned a lot, and then got acquired by a company that postdoc, and that company. So I joined a company growing very rapidly and learned a lot, and that company IPO, and for a second became a $10 billion company. It's still a few $1 billion company. So my investor made money, and the team made money. And then one of my investors, Gigi Levy Weiss from NFX, I was in Israel. I told them, like, when I was at Twist, we thought about starting a fund. It didn't work out, and I had a meeting with him, and he said, like, "Okay, what do you really want to do like in your like what motivates you, what do you want, how much salary is important for you, how much upside, like life work-life balance, and like and be real with me. So he had a discussion where he said like really you personally, what would be the best thing for you? And then he wrote on the wall everything I can do, like I can join a big startup, small startup, blah, blah, blah. Said like based on what he told me, you should start a fund, and here's third of the fund. He invested third of the fund. And I was like, everybody needs a friend like Gigi. He's amazing. So that's how I found myself starting my own fund, and I really enjoyed that. I think a lot of my curiosity and ADD, maybe HDHD, really helped me there. And I did it for 2 years. After 2 years, the partners in FX told me like it was a test, you passed, so join us. And I
Wow.
knew them for a long time. I trust them, and it was a bigger, better platform. So joined them, and that's how I became a investor.
Amazing path, and I guess driven, as you said, a bit by being in the right place with the lucky people, so you can be lucky too, in some ways, and get
Again,
those opportunities.
there is a great podcast that Naval Ravikant did where he talk about how to be rich without being lucky. I sent to my kids to listen to it. It's a great thing, and they said there are different kind of luck. There's this blind luck, which is you win the lottery
Right.
or get burned to a rich person. Like you have nothing to do with it. That's blind luck. There is a lack of like just trying. Like most people don't do anything. They sit on the couch, but just going out there and trying and and flying and talking and doing, like you create more surface area for luck to hit you. And then there is luck that it's almost not really luck. It's like you have to be very unlucky not to be lucky. Like if you get to a point where you can invest, be an investor, and you have a portfolio of 60 companies, like every specific company to be successful is very lucky. But not to have any of the 60 companies be very successful, you have to be very unlucky, right? Or if you have a specific knowledge or specific qualities, like you're the best deal lawyer, people come to you, right? You don't need to be lucky. Like he explained, like, oh, if you're the best deep water scuba divers, so if somebody is very lucky to find a treasure ship that sunk, he'll come to you. So you need
Right.
to be less lucky, right? So you get to benefit from the luck of other people. So that's almost like you put yourself in a position where you have to be very unlucky not to be lucky. So that's kind of a different kind of luck. But definitely being in the Bay Area, you're exposed. Like it's so like there are people in Stanford that can just write me an email and come to my office and talk to me, and I'm connected to other companies and I can connect them. And they're like, it's easier to be lucky than if you're in the village in Africa somewhere. Like it doesn't matter how smart you are. Like,
Yeah,
you know.
yeah, than almost anywhere else, compared to here, I feel like.
And people through history knew it. Like the US is a nation of immigrant. People came here to be lucky because it was a place where you could build yourself.
Yeah. Um, on that point, beyond the luck that you create for yourself by being here, what are some key differences you see between doing business in Israel and maybe just the Bay Area, not necessarily the whole U.S. But is there key differences in how you work and approach business and relationships in a professional context?
I don't know if it's Israel or the Bay Area. I think it's also kind of what business are you in. Every business is very different. The business of being a drug dealer is very different than the business of being a PE investor or VC investor or a founder, like those. And those attract different kind of qualities. Like to be successful in each of those businesses, you need to be different with different business practices. Um, in the Bay and also in Israel, this is why it's a very close culture. In tech, I think the current culture, it was different in the past, but the current culture is very kind of founder friendly, technology forward, optimism, helping each other. You won't find a lot of people who say, oh, I'll introduce you to an investor, give me 5% of the deal. Like, so it's just like, no, I'm happy to introduce you to investor expecting nothing. So there's a lot of giving forward, like, oh, you made some money in a company, so now you angel invest because you want to help the next generation. Or and a lot of people are just happy to help, and you can reach out to them, and they're like, "Hey, can I take an hour for your time for a podcast?" Like, and stuff like that. Like it happens. Like some of it, like people don't know. Maybe in the back of their mind, they think, "Oh, maybe something good will happen." And some of it, like they do because they like it. Like they like to help young people. It makes them feel better. Like, but it's more personal. And I think it's all about kind of supply and demand. I think of startups, like again, as VC, you sell commodity. You sell the biggest commodity, which is money. Like you have money, I have money, people have money. So why would people take your money, right? And especially there are kind of four different levels of being an investor. One level is you can't be an investor because nobody will take your money. And then one level is like people will take your money if you give them the best price because they get the best price. One level is like they'll choose you even though you give them the same price as everybody else. So if somebody else will give them a better price, they'll go to them. But if everybody gives the same price, they'll choose you because they prefer to work with you. And the best kind of level of investor is like people will come to you and take your money even at a lower price, at lower valuation, because they think you add a lot of value to them. Right? That's kind of the three layers of being an investor. And the best deals, the best entrepreneurs, they have options. So you cannot be an asshole. I wrote a whole blog post about why VC becomes asshole because there are a bunch of things that drive you to become asshole. But like, you can be an asshole. You have to create a brand for yourself or really caring and really helping. Um, and they choose you. Like the best founders choose you. You don't choose them. It might be different in places like bio where there's a lack of capital. So sometimes if you don't invest, nobody will. Also, there are different kinds of investment. Like in bio and deep tech, you really have to understand the technology. In software, where people can iterate very quickly, and you can just, oh, this software doesn't work, let's write a different software. It's more about the people. But yeah, relationship is a big part of it. I don't know if AI will take that job too. It might, but
We'll see.
so as long as people build companies, not AIs, then I think actually having a relationship and trust with the founders is very important.
On that point, quickly before we wrap up, but do you see AI being something that replaces the investors and the investment side and due diligence at all, or just enhances your capabilities? How do you see that playing for
Great
VC?
questions. So Mark Andreessen from Andreessen Horowitz had a had a podcast interview not long ago that everybody was laughing because he said like, AI will take everybody's job, but not mine. And I think like everybody thinks that in a way, like, it takes somebody else's job and not mine. Nobody knows. I think there are two big things that will happen in the future that I care about. Well, several, but I think the two that I'm tracking is kind of AI and longevity. Like there's multi-trillion-dollar kind of opportunities that can really change the world for the better, or not, depending. But I think the hype around AI is real, and some people would lose money on some things. But I think the reason people are so excited is that because in Silicon Valley, investors are very much attuned to exponential growth. Like the entire tech ecosystem is driven by Moore's law and other rules like that, where it's exponential increase in capabilities. And the thing about AI is the exponent, and anything about exponential, like the exponent is very important. Like, are you doubling by three, doubling by four, and like how fast are you doubling? Because one become two, become four, become eight, become 36. Like very quickly it becomes trillions. Like it starts small and change very rapidly. And the exponent in AI has been very sharp. So the changes are very sharp. So if people just take it a few years to the future, they're like, oh my God, like life will be so different. Uh, and I think if you look at history, usually technology is great. It's all like magic, it's doing more with less, right? It's great for society. It's the only thing that improve life condition for the human race. Um, so some people say, oh, it's just going to be like the past, right? We used to all be hunter-gatherers, and now we don't have to, or we used to all have employment as the horrible employment in agriculture and low yield, and now we don't have to. So it just will continue like that, and it just increase the pie, and everybody become richer and more, and everything become more abundant, right? Because it's all about doing more with less, and the price of goods and services go down as automation and like robots with AI can do everything. Um, I think this time is slightly different because it's one thing to automate muscle, it's one thing to automate brains. Because brains was what left to make us very human. And if AI will get to a point that is, why would it stop? It stop at human level? Why it won't be 10 times human level, or 100 times, or 1,000 times, or a million times? And what is it a million time human level? Like, look at the difference between you and ants. Ants doesn't know anything about nuclear theory and cannot build a nuclear bomb, right? And you know, so what is a billion times smarter than human, and when does it stop? And if they can do all jobs better than you, what's left, right? Will humans just become DJs and I don't know what is friends to give hugs to each other? Like, what stays like the human thing that human does? So I don't know. I'm excited about the future. I want to live in that future. I'm kind of like, it's almost amazing that we live in a generation where we can stay alive and to see that future, that singularity where it's hard to predict what will happen. I hope for the best. Let's see. Yeah,
Yeah,
we're part of the ride.
exciting times.
Definitely.
Yeah, so as we're wrapping up, actually, more about the now, what would you give as advice to immigrants from Israel or other places that are thinking of moving to the US?
It's a too big of a question, right?
Okay, yeah.
Because it's for all technologies, for all industries, for everything.
Well,
Look,
in your specific, if they're coming to work as a founder or VC in biotech,
It,
what do
it
you
it
have?
depends a lot. Look, I think even relocation was a very good experience for me. You get to really learn, not just by visiting, but by staying there for years and then understanding the cycles of life and the people. You get to deeply understand a new culture, and it gives you good perspective for where you're coming from. Um, It's not easy, right? I don't feel, I think in the US is slightly different than other countries in a sense because it was always an immigrant nation. What is American? Like a bunch of people from all over the world can feel American. Like, it's not like France or Italy, Italian, you're born there, you go back to Rome, whatever, like it's your country and your, language and your history. America is kind of a new thing that people came all over the world to be here. So I can be an American and feel very American, even though I wasn't born here. My kids can definitely feel Americans, like after one generation. So it's very different. So I think, but you need to, it's never easy. It's never easy to leave your home and your networks and your culture to be a place where it's not your place, maybe, and you don't feel sometimes welcome or understood, or things are very different. Um, it was easier for me. I think the best advice is like, don't get to your own kind of ghettos and your own network. Just like, oh, if I'm Indian, I just have Indian friends. If I'm Italian, I just have Italian friends. Friends, just friends. Like, it's a good way to start, but really try to immerse yourself with the culture and the place that you're coming to, and try to understand it, but try to be part of it. Um, Try to actually have Americans and bring what you bring. Like, I think this is a great thing about America. Everybody's bringing their own kind of piece of culture, and some cultures have easier time to get together than others. Like, it's funny, but I think Israeli and Indian culture, or even the Iranians, so funny with all the war. But the Iranians that are here and Israelis that are here are very friendly and close to each other. It's a very similar kind of culture.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah.
So yeah, just
Okay.
try to
Yeah.
immerse in it, try to be like, to understand it, to be part of it, to enjoy the good things about it. You don't have to leave to give away what you came with. Um, yeah,
Yeah, that was great advice, I think. And you gotta kind of learn what it is and why you're here and integrate and take the good parts. And the bad, I guess, but celebrate the good parts of the U.S. culture and being here.
Yeah,
Uh,
be
so-
involved, and it's fine. Like I think the US is a malleable thing. Like
yeah.
people came here and changed their culture. Like a lot
Mhm.
of the US culture came from wave of immigrations, of different immigrants coming here and creating their own niche of culture. The Italian people who came here, the Irish people who came here, like the
Mhm.
Russian, like the Jewish people, like they all have a piece of culture and this kind of tapestry, which is the US.
Right. Well, just to conclude and kind of bring us to the end of the episode, I wondered if you could, in a short sentence or a few words, describe or summarize your experience in the U.S. of coming to the U.S. and living here.
Um, I like it here. Again, I funny. I'm going for vacation next week in Italy, and like I look at the weather, and it's going to be scorching hot, and like other places in the world I can visit, but I think the only places I can live and feel like I'm at home is Israel and the US, or this part of the US. Just maybe because I've been here for so long. Um, for me right now, I can live anywhere I want in the world, and this is kind of the best place for me. It's the weather, the technologies, the people, the networks, the day-to-day life. Um, so yeah, I don't know. It's for me. Yeah, I'm extremely happy. But again, like uh, I see it even with the war that just happened. Like you never forget where you came from. I was definitely glued to the news, and also like seeing some. I don't want to call it anti-Semitism, but like, very negative things about Israel here. I try to, like, at Stanford, for example, there was a lot of protests for Gaza and whatever. And like, I try to, the first time I was there, it made me mad. And I felt like, oh, I need to talk to those people and persuade them and with my righteousness and whatever. And then I'm like, it's not my battle anymore. They have the right for their, for what they think. They haven't lived there, they don't know. But and based on what they see, like I don't think they are bad people. They're just, they're trying to. They think what is happening is bad, and protesting. It's fine. So, no, not try to be so more dogmatic, about stuff. Yeah.
Right. Well, Omri, thank you so much for taking the time today, sharing your story from Israel to US, research, founder, VC, such an interesting and rich story. So thanks again for joining us and sharing.
Likewise. It was nice and very unusual. Usually I talk about like longevity, science, tech, or investing. So, happy to talk about that. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Beyond Borders and joining us to celebrate the journeys, the successes, and the stories of immigrants making their mark in the US. If this story inspired you, please like, follow, and subscribe wherever you listen to your podcast. You can also find more information at beyondborderspod.com. Your support helps us keep making and sharing these inspiring stories. Until next time, keep going, keep growing, and go beyond borders.